This visit, we're being joined by Dr. Gilbert Doctorow, who is an international affairs analyst. He's joining us live on this broadcast. Now, Dr. Doctorow, this is a significant visit by the Russian President Vladimir Putin. He appears to be choosing the nations that he's visiting ever since he's invaded into Ukraine. What do you make of the Russian president's visit to the United Arab Emirates and also to Saudi Arabia?
The decision to visit these two countries had a very specific and identifiable reason. That is, they are the two countries which, with Russian and Chinese backing, were in October inducted into BRICS, and they will become full-fledged members of BRICS in January 2024. So it's quite logical on the way to that happening that Putin would visit there. I think they have a number of things to discuss at the geopolitical level of BRICS, but at the same time, it is important to note that this visit was not by one man, Mr. Putin, flying in his plane. He had a large delegation of his ministers and other important leaders in economics and in business who accompanied him. And in that sense, it was not just a breakfast meeting. It was the whole day spent in Abu Dhabi,
right,
with various participants from the Russian government.
Now, the United States, of course, sees West Asia as its diplomatic backyard. Historically, it is the United States over the course of the last several decades that, in fact, has been pulling the strings here. But what we've witnessed over the course of the last few months is that China has managed to facilitate the ties between Saudi Arabia and Iran to improve. China is also taking a more assertive stance on what it intends to happen between Israel and Palestine. Do you think that Russia is now joining the bandwagon of probably challenging the Americans in West Asia, which the Americans felt very comfortable as their own diplomatic backyard?
The Russians have been challenging the Americans in what they consider to be their backyard since 2015, when they entered the civil war in Syria to save the government from radical terrorists that were being financed and promoted by the United States and its allies. So the standoff between the United States and Russia in this part of the world is of considerable duration in the Putin period of leading Russia. 2015 is a cardinal year, and much of what we've seen in the Ukrainian civil war, or the Ukrainian-Russian war, as you want to put it, is the use of military technologies and equipment which the Russians used in their war in Syria. Indeed, going back a half a year or more to where the Prigozhin's Wagner group was of a particular moment, decisive importance in a local conflict around Bakhmut. That particular military unit was formed and grew in the civil war in Syria, which Russia participated in. So this is not a new development. It is an extension of a pattern that has been well established now for 8 years.
Now, Dr. Doctorow, we also need to look at this visit in the context of what is happening at this moment in this raging war between Israel and Hamas at this moment. Historically, over the course of the last few decades, Russia has by and large remained neutral. Do you expect Vladimir Putin to now be taking a more assertive stance so far as the Israel-Palestine conflict is concerned? Because that's precisely what the Chinese are now doing.
Well, the Russians have been neutral, although in the last 6 weeks or so, ever since the Israelis launched their savage attacks in Gaza, Russia has been tilting towards the Palestinians and away from Israel. Nonetheless, the position of Russia is to be an honest broker, to present itself as an honest broker for the settlement of the ongoing war in and around Gaza, lest it become a regional, if not a global war. In that sense, the Russians and the Chinese are reading from the same page.
And my final question to you, Dr. Doctorow, is about what is happening within the United States about backing the Ukrainian war effort. There seems to be complete confusion. Now, the White House says that it is almost running out of funding to back the Ukrainian war effort, and it is not able to secure funding within the Congress. How do you think Vladimir Putin would be looking at that?
Well, let's turn attention to Washington, because that's the decisive area of confusion. I think that that you shouldn't take at face value anything that Mr. Biden says. And his remarks about Russia to move on and expand its military efforts against NATO, this is all Cold War rhetoric that he's been spouting for the last 50 years, and is irrelevant to the present situation. The present situation is that Mr. Biden is complicit in the defunding of Ukraine. And as he says, they want to pin the blame on the Republicans. But the fact is that he had every possibility of getting the money that he wants from the Senate if he had agreed to the demand of the Republicans that more money also be put up for the border security. He didn't do that. And he knew that the Republicans would then reject the bill. So he is finding a way to let Ukraine sink and then to blame the Republicans.
I think that's a crucial statement that you've made. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Doctor, for joining us and getting us that perspective there.
Thank you for having me.